Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. All right, lots of people joining us today. Just conscious of the time and there's heaps to get through, so I might get started. So firstly, hello and welcome to today's webinar. It's presented to you by APCO and Planet Ark. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we all work today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are participating in this webinar. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Alison and I'm part of the Member Services team at the Australian Packaging Covenant Organisation, or APCO for short. We're a co-regulatory, not-for-profit organisation leading the development of a circular economy for packaging in Australia. Most of you joining today may be familiar with the Australasian Recycling Label, or the ARL. We deliver the ARL program in partnership with Planet Ark and also Prep Design. So today's topic, Future Beyond the Bin, is the theme for this year's National Recycling Week, which will be running next week from the 9th to the 15th of November. So today we're joined by three very knowledgeable guest speakers. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions for them. So if you do, please pop your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom platform. We'll have a chance to answer those questions towards the end of the session. You'll also notice the chat box. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but feel free to pop in your name and where you're joining us from so that we can see who's joining us today. So today, our guest speakers, we have Claire. Claire Bell is the Recycling Campaign Manager, and also Ryan Collins, Head of Circular Economy Programs, both from Planet Ark. We're also joined by Alice Johnson from Horizon Communication Group, who run our communications here at APCO. So first up, we'll hear from Claire. As mentioned, Claire is the Recycling Campaigns Manager for Planet Ark and looks after National Recycling Week and the Cartridges for Planet Ark scheme. She's worked for Planet Ark for over 8 years, and has a passion for all things reduce, reuse, and recycle. She's motivated to help people take small actions that can have a big impact on the future health of our planet. Over to you, Claire.
Lovely. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, thanks everybody for taking time out of your day to join us. It's so good to have so many of you online, and maybe we're a welcome distraction from events in the US. So I've got about 10 minutes to talk to you, so I will try and make this as quick as possible. Okay, so as was just mentioned, it's National Recycling Week next week. Planet Ark's National Recycling Week has been going for 25 years, and it really is an opportunity to provide information, education, resources, events and activities for workplaces, schools, communities and households across Australia. And of course the impacts and resources are available all year round. It's just not for the week, but it's a great opportunity to highlight some of those resources and activities that we can all benefit from. As mentioned, 9th to the 15th of November, so plenty of time to still get involved. If you can't get involved, as I say, during the week, any time's a good time to get involved in waste avoidance and recycling. Okay, so this year's theme, as mentioned, is Recovery, a Future Beyond the Bin. I guess for all of us this year, we're all in need of a little bit of a recovery by this point. But what does that mean for the workplaces? Obviously, resource recovery is our #1 priority. We really want to get away from talking about waste and talking about resources and the value of those resources. And that can be closely tied into our economic recovery as well. There's a large focus from government, states and federal on the recycling industry at the moment, with lots of stimulus and impetus into recovering the recycling industry. But on a grassroots level for your organisation, having some great recycling practices could actually save you money on your bottom line as well. And of course, probably most importantly is the environmental recovery. Waste avoidance and valuing our resources not only takes those materials out of landfill, but it also reduces our need to use virgin resources by keeping those items in circulation, and also helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And it can even contribute to a bit of emotional recovery as well. I think when we can take some practical steps, some positive and small steps to actually make a change or make a difference, helps us feel in control and is good for our well-being as well. So why recycle? Research tells us that we think that about 40% of Australians believe workplaces lack recycling options. So there's obviously room for some improvement. Now, there can be a number of reasons why you might have recycling options in place. So now's a really great time to start if you haven't already. And I'm going to take you through some of those options today. Employers also, 3 out of 4 employers also agree that having recycling at work makes them feel better about their employer and can indeed boost morale. I think we're all pretty good at doing the right thing at home or trying to do the right thing at home, and sometimes that doesn't translate into the workplace. That could be a cultural thing, it could be an access thing, but providing those options for employees to participate in recycling and waste avoidance in the workplace is a great thing to get going. And really, internally and externally, customers are really looking to brands and organisations to demonstrate leadership in sustainability. And that visibility of implementing those systems and waste avoidance opportunities within the workplace is, a great way to start demonstrating some of that leadership. So ways you can get involved. So specifically for National Recycling Week, we have a number of activities that you can get involved in. First of all, we have the Monday Muster. One of our partners, Mobile Muster, does a really great job at recovering the resources from old and broken mobile phones. And we encourage workplaces to get involved during November by either hosting a Monday Muster, and the links are going to be there in the presentation for you to look at that. If you're not physically in the workplace and you're at home, the Mobile Muster has a free satchel service for which you can request, pop your mobile phone and accessories into it, and return for free via the post. They also have some great information on data removal. Mobile Muster estimate there's about 5 million old phones knocking around in drawers and cupboards in Australia, so it'd be really great to get those out and get those resources back in circulation. For the first time this year, we have a recycling trivia package for workplaces, which is proving to be immensely popular. It's a bit of fun and a good workplace engagement activity to test your recycling knowledge. You just hop on the link, request the package, and we'll send that to you. You could either do it as a face-to-face event or online, and hopefully it'll give you some new information, perhaps test some misconceptions, and have a bit of fun along the way. We've also got a section on setting up a recycling system in the workplace, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And we also have our resource hub that has a wealth of information that you can share across your channels and networks, from infographics to social media graphics. So let's get into actually how your workplace can become a recycling superstar. We've probably all recognised some of the basic recycling stations that are in our workplaces or in our communities. And if you don't have some of these basic recycling opportunities in your workplace, I would say that's a really great place to start. We have some information on that on our website. Getting that source separation and getting those materials into circulation is a great thing to do. And really, at an organisation level, if you can talk to your building manager, facilities manager, or the decision makers to get those systems in place, either just internally or for your customers as well, I recommend you do so. But what I'm going to focus on today is more setting up some recycling systems that are outside of those normal systems that can really sort of set you up for success. So first of our special recycling systems, as I just mentioned, mobile phone recycling. It's free, it's easy. You can get a collection box from your workplace, you can bring them in for home, and you could also maybe offer that service to your customers or your community. More information on our website on that. Cartridges for Planet Ark, very close to my heart as the campaign manager, but it's a great example of product stewardship in Australia. Brands are taking responsibility for the end of life of their cartridges by paying for the recycling so that you can recycle them for free. So if you go through a lot of cartridges in your workplace, please sign up for a box. Once the bags are full inside the box, you either get them picked up by courier if you're in metro area, or you can send them back through Australia Post if you're in regional areas. If you don't go through that many cartridges, there is always the option of dropping them off at a local retailer, such as Australia Post, JB Hi-Fi or Officeworks. That's also a solution if you can't get a box directly. Some other free programs that are out there, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but one thing that a lot of people do at home is take their soft plastics down to the supermarket, and there's no reason why you can't do that at work. It just takes one keen bean in the office to set up a little collection box, and when you're out at your lunchtime and you can pop to the local Woolies or Coles, get those soft plastics recycled. It can really make a big difference to the waste in your recycling bin. There's some other free recycling programs out there as well. TerraCycle runs a number of free programs that are suitable for your office, and again you could offer to your community or customers depending on what you want. Anything from oral care products to coffee pods to pens. It's also worth mentioning that Nespresso has a workplace recycling program from Nespresso pods as well. Some of the paid programs that you may be interested in, and the reason these are paid for example, battery recycling. There are several companies who run battery recycling schemes, but batteries are very heavy, and it costs a lot in logistics and freight to get them to travel to recycling centres, so you do have to pay for the containers that get collected. However, if you go through a lot of batteries, it is important to keep them out of your normal recycling bins because they are a hazard. They can cause fires in trucks and at processing centres. So it is worth maybe paying for one of those containers and returning it maybe once or twice a year. TerraCycle also has zero waste boxes that you can order directly through them or through Officeworks for specific waste streams, from anything from latex gloves to stationery supplies. So again, if those are some of the items that you find you were disposing of in landfill frequently, it might be worth investigating one of those boxes. Lastly, but not least, e-waste. I think any business will have occasions where they need to replace, upgrade, or recycle their e-waste, and there are lots of options out there. Check that they're being collected and recycled properly, whether it's just a casual drop-off pickup service, or again, you're getting a specific box to collect that e-waste and then sending it off. I would also say with that for e-waste, if it is working, please consider donating it. Something like Computers for Young and Old, the asylum seeker centres, there's lots of communities there that would appreciate usable laptops, computers, mobile phones, and other services. So finally, I just wanted to give you 5 ways in which you could go beyond the bin outside those services. Food organics. If you're game enough to get a worm farm in your office or get in a service that collects that, you can really avoid your waste. Take your reusables, your cups, your bottles, your cutlery to save on those single-use items. Get a separate box to collect your beverage cartons, cans and bottles. Raise some money for your community through a container deposit scheme. Importantly, to buy recycled. If you're recycling, it only works if you're buying it back. So from 100% recycled copy paper to implementing procurement policies where you mandate recycled content, that's an excellent way to support recycling. And then also donate, sell, share. Don't just dump your old office furniture in a skip bin. Look at ways to share it, hire it, sell it, and pass it on. I think that's pretty much all from me. I have a list of links and resources there, from signage to your bins to more information on some specific waste streams, but feel free to contact me directly or recycling at Planet Ark for further information.
Thanks, Claire. Lots of really helpful tips there for everyone. And I know definitely in the APCO office, we have a number of different setups for our soft plastics and our cartridges for Planet Ark. So it's definitely something everyone can get involved in, not only next week, but just as a general step for all. So next up, we'll hear from Ryan Collins. After nearly a decade working in the banking and finance industry, Ryan was drawn to a career in environmental conservation that saw him working in Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands and Fiji. With a background in psychology and environmental management, Ryan's role at Planet Ark since 2012 has been focused on developing engaging and positive environmental behaviour change programs to help everyone reduce waste and recycle. I'll now pass over to Ryan to talk about creating behaviour change in the workplace.
Thanks very much, Alison, and thank you, Claire. It's great to be with you all today. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. So today I'm going to talk to you about how you can communicate effectively to staff by using behaviour change psychology to improve recycling in your workplace and probably any other behaviour that you'd like to see in your colleagues. So I just wanted to show you businessrecycling.com.au. So once you've participated in National Recycling Week with some of the activities that Claire mentioned, this is the platform that will help you take the next step. We have recently just merged Recycling Near You and Business Recycling to be basically the one website. So it's the not one-stop shop for recycling, whether at work or at home. Its primary function is as a national directory of recyclers. So you can find recyclers in your area for any number of materials. There's over 80 materials listed on business recycling. And it's not just about the directory. We have a whole range of resources which are all free. And this is probably a good place to start. It's the War on Waste Toolkit for business. And you can basically open this toolkit for wherever you are on your waste journey, from at the beginning to how you build a business case for reducing waste and increasing recycling and implementing those programs that you might need to do for to your manager or board. It's got resources on how to get a snapshot of your waste, how to choose the right recycler. So we've got a checklist of the questions that you should be asking recyclers to make sure that they're doing what they need to do environmentally and legally. We also talk about how you can promote recycling programs and educate your colleagues. And as I said, there's a whole range of different materials available, which are all free. Today I'm going to talk about that, how you promote to colleagues. And I'm going to talk about 3 messages that don't work and 3 messages that do work. So to set the context, I'm going to talk a little bit about the barriers to environmental action that people face. And these are all forms of psychological distance. The first one is considered hypothetical distance. So this is where people see problems as being too uncertain. And we see this argument all the time with climate change deniers. The second is to do with temporal distance, and time. It's all happening in the future. For example, even those that do believe in human-induced climate change may feel that they have other things to worry about for now. And then there's geographical distance. You know, it's not happening in my backyard, so it's out of sight, out of mind. And then there's social distance. So no one close to me is affected. So there's that distance as well. So I'll move now on to those messages that may not necessarily work. So the first one relates to the legacy hypothesis. So this is a part of a theory by psychologist Erik Erikson, and that's the idea that we want to leave a positive legacy, whether it's material, financial, or environmental, for our children or for future generations. Now, the evidence does show that focusing on the future does make us care more. So you would think that having children would change our attitude or at least our behaviour. A UK study recently did some research into this, and it looked at a result of a national survey of 40,000 UK households over a period of about 3 years. Participants answered questions about their lifestyle, including their environmental behaviours. So they were asked questions such as, you know, do you put more clothes on rather than turn up the heating? Do you use public transport instead of the car? Do you buy recycled paper? So the study then categorised couples into 2 different groups. So there were those that had a low level of environmental concern, so they were less likely to share a car with others. And then there was another group of those with a high level of environmental concern. So they were more likely to, take their own reusable shopping bags, for example. Once they had children, they then looked at what actions they were taking. So those that had a low level of environmental concern, they found that there was actually a small decrease in environmental behaviours. For the green couples, once they had children, whilst there was a small increase in desire to act more sustainably, there was actually no behaviour change. So what's going on here? Well, the researchers concluded that parenthood is a time where concern is prioritised on the immediate well-being of the child, which makes sense, and not on the future of the environment. So messages that are aimed at parents and speak of leaving a legacy for children may not effectively change attitudes and behaviours, and the evidence does suggest that that we shouldn't rely on that type of messaging to change behaviour. And there have been many studies that have found that parenthood does not actually raise concerns about the environment. So the next one you would think makes sense. You provide the facts and people make up their minds. So it's tempting that providing information or facts alone will change people's attitudes and then their behaviour. But people tend to rationalise their own beliefs or their own actions and ignore information that is inconsistent with their prior beliefs. And neuroscientists have actually found that it's actually pleasurable to confirm your beliefs, as there's this rush of dopamine. So we actually reward ourselves when we see or hear something that we already believe. This is not a new discovery. Back in the 1970s energy crisis in the US, they conducted a national information campaign to all householders about reducing energy usage. So this consisted of printed materials, followed by energy audits to measure the energy consumption. And this actually resulted in negligible energy reduction. By the 80s, there'd been over 90 studies that tested information programs for energy use, and it found very little to no change in behaviour. But providing information and facts isn't wrong, it's just relying on it alone is. You have to motivate people. I'm sure many of you have seen a similar sign to this in your kitchen, or you may put one up like this. What this speaks to is this is actually highlighting the behaviour that you don't want. So avoiding those negative social norms is key here. Also using language like stop or don't or should, and also using red can kind of communicate anger. And there's an automatic feeling that you want to push back when you see those sorts of things. So you want to avoid activating resentment. What you can do in place of that is to frame it in the positive. And it can be hard, especially when you're walking into a filthy kitchen. But focusing on encouraging the right thing and highlighting rather than highlighting the negative norm is going to get you the result more so than the other way around. And to bring it back to recycling, you can thank people for recycling right. So following on from that, onto some of the evidence-based principles that have proven to work. The first principle is about linking to positive desires and aspirations. So I'll just talk to you about a Princeton University study that was conducted. This compared the use of pride versus guilt in creating behaviour change. So participants had to decide between eco-friendly and non-eco-friendly choices. So these choices range from choosing between purchasing an eco-friendly couch that might be a bit outdated and potentially ugly, and a sofa that used harsh chemicals in its manufacture, but was seen as modern. They were also asked questions like how many green amenities would they be willing to pay an extra $3 a week in rent for, such as water saving shower heads or solar power lighting. So one group was prompted to feel guilt, and one group was prompted to feel pride. So they were told such things as, as you make your decisions, keep in mind that you might feel guilty about your decisions and the alternatives you have picked. And then, of course, there was a control group. So which group won? So unsurprisingly, pride actually won over guilt and led to a much higher number of environmental actions being carried out. So the researchers concluded that pride motivated better than guilt. So this is an example of some cartridge for Planet Ark campaign messaging. You can see that it's about that collective pride, and we're using social proof where we're reinforcing the idea that a lot of people are doing the right thing. These are some resources, some graphics that are available on the Business Recycling website. And again, it's about instilling a sense of pride in staff and then, celebrating your achievements. The second principle is about valuing people's roles. So people are motivated to play a role in what's happening. We hate feeling incompetent or helpless. And the way you can get colleagues involved is to empower them to come up with ideas and for them to have their say. There was a UK survey that found empowering staff to contribute to these sorts of programs through suggestion schemes or problem-solving groups and identifying recycling champions not only helped increase employee participation, but also promoted teamwork as well. And finally, on to the last principle, and it's the one really easy persuasion technique that everyone should know. So what do I mean by this? So offering any action to your colleagues as a choice values self-motivated change and creates agency or a sense of control. It's about them feeling that they're able to do what they believe in. And this is backed by the evidence. There were a review of 42 psychological studies that examined this "you are free to choose" technique. And overall, it was tested on more than 22,000 people. And on average, these found that the technique was doubled the chances of people saying yes. It's also, it's respecting people's autonomy. So that actually has the happy side effect of making people more open to persuasion. It's about creating agency. Studies have found that it's not just knowledge and ability to recycle that will change behaviour. You do need to create that agency. And one way to do that is to link it with impacts. So linking it to personalised impacts, such as this. This is a poster, again, available on the Business Recycling website, about what the environmental benefits are from recycling that one aluminium can. And again, we're thanking people as well, which is part of that valuing people's roles principle. So just in summary, what doesn't work? Avoid just thinking of the children. So don't use parenthood or children to motivate behaviour change. Avoid just providing the facts. Information alone isn't enough. Avoid saying don't and avoiding the negative norm. And remember to use those positive desires and aspirations like pride. Value your colleagues' roles, value people's roles, and value self-motivated change, so provide a choice. So these recycling and other waste avoidance actions need to be easy before behaviour change can take place. You're free to use these principles, but ultimately the choice is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Definitely a lot of food for thought, I guess, for everyone on how we can communicate things a little bit different to get those change in behaviours. So last but not least, we'll hear from Alice. As I mentioned earlier, Alice is our communications manager here at APCO. We've worked closely with Alice and the Horizon Communication Group team for a few years now. They support us on APCO communications, including media and events and resources. And Alice has a wealth of knowledge, having been in communications for 10 years with a strong focus on sustainability and environmental issues, both here in Australia and over in the UK. So today, Alice will be talking to us about the National Consumer Education Campaign, and there'll also be some snippets from the campaign as well. So over to you, Alice.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So as Alison said, I'm going to be talking about our National Consumer Ed campaign. So this is a new initiative. It has just launched. It's very exciting. And it is a 2-year program that we're running with our in really close partnership with the team at Planet Ark. And it's also supported by the federal government because it's funded through the Environmental Restoration Fund. At a really big picture level, what we're trying to do with this campaign is all about improving sustainable packaging awareness, but also about behaviour. So what does sustainable packaging mean? It's a pretty big concept. I'll touch on that in a second. But in the background, there's also a big piece of work with this campaign that is all about consistency. So whether you guys are working in councils, if you're a consumer, if you're working in a business, you know how many messages are out there at the moment about recycling. It can be a really confusing space. What we're trying to do in the background of this work is build a bit more consistency in terms of the way people are talking about sustainable packaging and the issues related to it. Who are we trying to reach? Well, it's a national campaign, so everyone, pretty ambitious, but there are a few audiences in there that we are giving a bit of priority attention. So multi-unit dwellings, obviously a bit of a challenge in terms of recycling education because they have slightly different collection behaviours and sorting behaviours. So they're getting some specific resources. Women are getting a pretty big focus, 25 to 55. The research tells us that they are doing the majority of the purchasing behaviours, but also are the sort of primary member of a household that's doing a lot of the recycling. So they're getting a lot of focus. And last but not least, and you'll see this a lot in the material I'm about to show you, we've given younger audiences a fairly big focus. So they consistently come through as being really receptive to recycling information. And also, this is about behaviour change. So habitual behaviour change really does start at a young age. So we're starting to build that knowledge and that understanding right from the get-go. So sustainable packaging, what do we mean by that? Well, for us, we are talking about 6 key topics. So recycling obviously is a big focus, but we're also looking at a few other areas. Recycled content, so using those recycled materials again in packaging. Reuse, which is a really exciting space. There's lots of initiatives that are on the horizon coming. The Loop program, one that everyone was very excited about. So it's something that we're going to be hearing a lot about over the next couple of years. Some of those higher order behaviours, reduction and avoidance. So starting to build in awareness and the practical sort of skills that consumers need to choose to refuse practically. Also going to take a look at probably one of the more confusing topics for sustainable packaging, compostables. A really important area, but there is a little bit of greenwashing, but also potentially a little bit of confusion out there. So we'll be addressing that one. And last but not least, we're looking at building a little bit more understanding of what we call the functional role of packaging. So that's things like the role of packaging in reducing food waste. So building a little bit more of an understanding of life cycle assessment concepts and how packaging plays a role in that. Why those topics? I won't go into a huge amount of detail about it, but speaking with my APCO hat on, we are looking at a much bigger program over the next few years as we work towards delivering an initiative called the 2025 National Packaging Targets. If you're not familiar with them, jump onto the APCO site. There's lots of information. And really just to explain that consumer education plays a really important role in the delivery of those targets. There are some things that consumers have to do in order for us to reach them. So this consumer education program, it's not an afterthought, it's a really important part of it that feeds into a much bigger initiative that's happening in the APCO side. And we're going to be rolling out this campaign over the next 2 years, and we'll do it sort of in a campaign phase. So at the moment, we're looking at recycling, which is what I'm really going to be talking about today, but we'll be rolling out the themes over the next couple of months. So reduction and avoidance in January, new year, new you sort of stuff. February to March, we're going to be diving into recycled content. April to May, jumping back into recycling again with soft plastics. June and July, having a look at the reuse side of things. August and September, we'll be looking at compostables. And then October onwards, we'll be back to recycling again for National Recycling Week. But the first thing we wanted to dive into is really to give you guys a bit of a snapshot of what's happening right now, which is our new Check It Before You Chuck It campaign. This is a program that launched last month on the 12th of October, and it is about getting consumers in Australia to know about the Australasian recycling label, which I'm assuming most of you guys are familiar with, but if not, that is the label down in the bottom right there. And really to get all Australians looking for the label as a habitual practice. So every time you're at the bin, we need every Australian as a really consistent behaviour to check it before they chuck it. So that's really how that slogan was born, to really diving in on that specific behaviours. And then from there, we've built really a campaign around it, and it's a creative campaign. It is really family friendly. At the heart of it, we've got our characters there. And in the first iteration, it's rolling out from October through to the end of the year, because we've always got National Recycling Week. It is really a content-led campaign. So we've got a big suite of information and resources, and the intention is that it's something that everyone can use. So if you guys are thinking about using recycling education, either for your staff and employees, or maybe it's something you want to start talking about as a business or an organisation to your own channels, this is a campaign that's got lots of resources there for you. So without further ado, I'm going to rattle through a bit quicker. So here's a little peek behind the process. This is how we developed our characters. This is some of the early storyboards. You can see there's a lot of emphasis on specifically the eyes and the hands, because that's really what we want people to be doing, checking. So it's really honing in on those behaviours, and you can see how they developed and grew. Looked a bit scary at first, and then they got a little bit of personality to them, and there's them interacting with the packaging towards the end. Now I'm going to try and play the animation for you. If it's jumpy, I will set a link around to where it's on YouTube. So fingers crossed.
Your cereal box just gave its final flake. I think the milk's past expiry date. Check it before you chuck it, and I will too. It looks like your detergent's run out. You'll have to wear those undies again inside out. Check it before you chuck it, and I will too. Look at the stuff you have on the table. You see they all have a brand new label called the ARL. And on bin night, it's gonna help you understand how to recycle right. That's why you check the label before you chuck it, to help stop the planet from kicking the bucket. Check it before you chuck it, and I will too. Well, there goes the final drop of shampoo. Your sister's gonna be so mad at you, but if you check it before you chuck it, she might forgive you. So check it before you chuck it, and I will too.
There you go. Okay, so I'm going to rattle through a bit quickly because I'm running out of time. But as I mentioned, campaign is all about content. So we have got the animation. We've got cut down versions of that. We've got social media resources, posters, social media tiles, media release, loads of information. They're all packaged up into a batch of toolkits. And there's one there for government, for businesses, for industry, for educators. So there's loads of stuff in there. So it's ready to go. We love everyone to be using those as much as possible. In terms of how the campaign is rolling out, a little bit of a recap on what's happened so far. We did a big media push on the launch week and had some fantastic results. You can see the lovely Rebecca Gilling from the Planet Ark team up there on the top right talking to Channel 10. Minister Evans was a fantastic advocate for the campaign again. So he was as part of a media package that went out on Win News nationally, which was fantastic. And also we've got a range of campaign ambassadors who are out there getting the word out there. So that was a piece in the Daily Telly about sustainable packaging. But outside of media, we are doing a lot on social. So an initiative we'd love everyone to get involved with is something called Check It Tuesday. So every Tuesday, we're encouraging people to share a post about the ARL. So we've all had that moment where you're at the bin, you want to recycle, you look, there's no information, it's confusing, and then you see the ARL and it's actually really easy. So it's a bit of the aha moment. So get that message out there with the Check It Tuesday hashtag. You'll be seeing the animation out and about a lot. It's going out on a community service announcement in the lead up to National Recycling Week. And we've also, as I mentioned, we've got those resource toolkits. So they are going out far and wide to community organisations, academic organisations, lots. So if you would like one, they're up on the Planet Ark and on the APCO websites. So a really fun initiative that the Planet Ark team lead on is something called the Schools Program. It really ramps up in the lead up to National Recycling Week with the Schools Recycle Right Challenge. This year they've got fantastic competition running. So as part of the program, they have lesson plans available, and that's for early learning right through to year 10. It's all curriculum aligned, really good content. And so for any teachers out there, if you use one of these toolkits, you can, one of these lesson plans rather, you go in the running to win 5 prizes. So have a little look. I think one of the guys will share a link around, so get involved. And you might well have seen Check It already. We are out on the train network in Sydney and Brisbane at the moment. A huge thank you to Mondelez, Nestle, Coles and PepsiCo, some of the fantastic APCO members that helped make this possible. It's so exciting to see the creative out there on the commute. And lastly, we do a lot of work with government, and the Planet Ark team specifically work really closely with councils. So you guys, if you're a member of council, you are really on the coalface of recycling education. So we really need you guys to understand the ARL and the benefits it offers. So the fantastic Ali from Planet Ark does a lot of briefings with councils. So if that's something you'd be interested in, just get in touch. We can book one for you. And finally, there's loads and loads of ways to get involved. So as I mentioned already, resources, help us get that word out there. Take part in Check It Tuesday, get those, your selfies with your recycling aha moments out there. If you are a business or an organisation that works with spokespeople or ambassadors, we'd love to hear them talk about Check It. And maybe just, get your internal teams talking about it. We all wear business hats, but also consumer hats. So, share these resources with your team because they might find it helpful. And also, lastly, if you're not using the ARL as a business owner, we encourage you to, but some of those other themes coming up may well be of interest for you. So if you're looking in the reuse, recycled content space, stay tuned because we will be covering those in the coming months. I think that is everything from me. So I will hand it back over to Alison.
Thanks, Alice. And thank you for sharing all that information about the National Consumer Education Campaign. Like Alice said, it'll be a 2-year program and we're just getting started. So there's plenty to look forward to. So now I've noticed heaps of questions coming through the Q&A box, which is great. Keep them coming. And we'll now be able to kind of talk through those questions. One that came through early in the chat was about the presentation. Just so everyone's aware, anyone who's registered today will receive an email tomorrow, and that will include a copy of these slides. So feel free to share them on with your colleagues or with friends and family to get the information out there. I guess one of the first questions, obviously in terms of National Recycling Week, one for Claire and Ryan, I guess in terms of next week and all the programs that are running, what else can individuals do to get involved in National Recycling Week?
Yep, so much. We've got lots of new pages on our website. We've got a great Recycle Right quiz, which is an online quiz that anyone at home can get involved in. Look on our events page for any National Recycling Week events near you. Lots of online events happening this year for obvious reasons. If you can't or don't want to get involved in a face-to-face event. And also we have lots going on for schools. Alice just mentioned the ARL lesson plans and incentives for teachers. We have a great competition to win 3D printers worth over $4,000 for schools. Lots of resources, lesson plans, activities, guides. And of course, as well as National Recycling Week website, there's the recycling near you as well. So if you're looking for services in your local area, either via your council or through other options, just hop onto recycling near you as well.
There's also the online Recycle Right quiz, so you can test your recycling knowledge and go into the draw to win one of 5 prize packs. And all the things in that goodie bag have the ARL on them or are made with recycled content. So have a look on the website.
Great. In terms of obviously National Recycling Week, but also the National Consumer Education Campaign, Alice, we've had a couple of people ask how can they stay informed of the campaign and what's to come?
A couple of ways you can stay informed. I would, if you are not already subscribing to APCO's newsletter, APCO Unpacked, that's a good option. If you jump onto the APCO website, there's a rego on the front page. So definitely stay tuned with that one, because that covers all sorts, as well as you can stay up to date on the national packaging targets and the ARL program and lots of other things. APCO LinkedIn is also a really good one. If any professionals, jump on there and follow, because we are putting out pretty regular information on there.
And just to reiterate, we've had a little ask about those resource toolkits that Alice mentioned. As she said, they are on the APCO website and on the Planet Ark arl.org.au website. The arl.org.au has toolkits for NGOs and for community groups and for individuals and educators. And on the APCO website, we have some more detailed ones for the brand owner members and also for packaging manufacturers and suppliers too. So do keep an eye out for those and utilise those resources. So a couple of questions coming in through the Q&A still. We've got one here from Laura, who's asked, I just want to confirm if the ARL says it can go in the recycling, will all councils recycle it? My understanding is that each council might be slightly different. How does that work?
So to get the label on a piece of packaging, it needs to go through the prep tool. I won't go through the whole details of that because it'll take a long time. But basically it uses data from Recycling Near You in terms of which councils accept what in their curbside recycling bin. And that's based on, and then it's extrapolated out into population. So for a piece of packaging to get the recyclable label on it, over 80% of the population needs to have access to council curbside recycling. From 60 to 80%, then it's conditionally recyclable, and the label will say to check locally.
Oh, I think that covered it really well. I think there's a lot of work going into that back-end portal of prep to be able to assess that recyclability. I think something that people often think about is just if it's a certain material type, it is recyclable. But there's so many other factors that are taken into consideration, like inks and sizes and adhesives and labels. It's quite complex, but I guess that's the importance of the prep tool, and the ARL is having that evidence case behind it. So a couple of other pieces as well. We've got a question here about soft plastics. Returning it to store. Is it all stores that they can be returned to? Is it any just particular store that they can return their soft plastics to?
It's all Coles and Woolworths stores around the country.
And let's have a look, see some of the more questions. How are we closing the gap for customers to be able to chuck the right thing in the right bin while standing at the bin in terms of the recyclability label and what's not recyclable, what is recyclable? In those cases, how best should they get in touch with their local councils? Is it a certain area, or is it the business recycling or the Recycling Near You website? Who best should they contact in those cases of check?
Yeah, in terms of check locally, they can go to Recycling Near You or check with their local council. With the data in Recycling Near You, we have an information centre that contacts all councils each year to make sure that the data there is up to date as possible, but otherwise you can check your local council.
Alice, this one might be for you, and it's an interesting one that I definitely don't know the answer to. Do the characters have names, or will they ever have names?
They don't actually have official names, but we'd be open to suggestions if anyone would like to submit some ideas. No names yet, but it's a good idea.
Will the ARL label ever go on non-food items, or are they already all on non-food items?
Yes, they are on non-food items. They're on, I'll give a plug here to Planet Ark paper that has the label on it. And I know Officeworks were one of the first companies to put the ARL on their products. So a lot of the products that they sell obviously aren't food items. So yes.
Yeah, Unilever have them on a lot of cleaning products, detergents, kitty litter. That's another one that it's on. Once you start looking for it, you'll find it on all sorts of things.
Yeah, there's I think just over 460 businesses that are part of the program. So it's getting really, really common. You'll see it everywhere. A lot of the own brand products at Woolies and Coles, Nestle have got a fantastic range. As Claire mentioned, Unilever have got lots of products. Yeah, definitely a widespread. I know there's some new products in Rebel that have got it as well. So
it's definitely growing, that's for sure. And then probably one last question, because I am just conscious of the time. And this is a good one. Do you have any advice on how best to handle compostable items? What to do with them in that regard, or what you should look out for or consider?
I can answer some of that. I'm sure Alice has probably got something else. Compostable and biodegradable items can be tricky. I know APCO has some great information on those terms and definitions, and are working on improving some of those. From a recycling bin point of view, generally, if it's going to be home compostable, it needs to have a home compostable certified label on it. Lots of compostable items that say they're compostable can't break down easily in your home compost bin. They need an industrial process, which needs a specialist collection. So even councils who are offering food organic services may reject some of those biodegradable compostable items, because again, it will take even too long for their processes to break down. So you really have to kind of check your labels and get some advice through your council and through the service that you're wanting to return those items through. Normally compostable and biodegradable items are a no-no for your curbside bin, but again, we would always say check locally.
Definitely some good advice there, and looking out for certified material, that's for sure. It looks like in the chat box there's a lot of interest in names for the characters, so we might have to investigate that one. But again, just conscious of the time, before we wrap up, I did want to say thank you to Claire, Ryan and Alice for your presentations today, and thank you everyone for joining us. Lots of really good questions, and I guess lots of pieces that we can all take away, especially with National Recycling Week next week. Let's definitely get involved in anything you can. If you don't yet have certain systems set up in the office and you happen to be in there, get the team involved, have a competition, see what you can do, get involved in the recycling competition online. I think it's been popped in the chat box. Otherwise, if you do ever have any questions, I know the APCO team and the Planet Ark team are always open to helping out as ever we can. So feel free to send us an email or give us a call, and we can talk through it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.